and that is to talk about my journey with mental health and some of the lessons that I've learned along the way. This is incredibly difficult for me to share and be vulnerable like this, which is weird to me because I consider myself to be such an open book with my loved ones and close relatives. But it's probably because I'm putting this out here on social media for anyone and everyone to see. I was clinically diagnosed with depression in high school. It was in high school where I first experienced suicidal thoughts and ideations and actually behavior. Because of those reasons, I was quickly put into therapy and then put on an antidepressant. Eventually, after a year of the counseling and the antidepressants, I continued therapy, but I was then weaned off the antidepressants with professional help. Although I've sought counseling many times throughout my entire life, just depending on the varying seasons of my life, it was always a tough pill for me to swallow with the fact that I was taking antidepressants when I was in high school. And my counselor would always tell me, well, would you tell a cancer patient not to take his or her chemotherapy? Now, I know that can be up for debate right now, but if you kind of just take it in the most fundamental sense, no, you really wouldn't. If a patient has cancer or a patient needs a kidney transplant, would you tell that kidney transplant patient not to go through dialysis? And she kept telling me, it's the same thing, Jen. It's the same thing. But, it had been a year and I wasn't on antidepressants anymore, so I didn't think it was that big of a deal, and it never crossed my mind again because I didn't have the stigma with the counseling. I had the stigma with the antidepressants because I needed a pill to make me happy. Just seems weird, right? It seems kind of messed up. So it actually wasn't until I gave birth to my daughter Stella that I actually went back on antidepressants. I was in a tough place and I was in denial about it the entire time. In fact, it wasn't until I had lunch with a friend who also had recently given birth to her first child, and she told me it was an intervention in a sense of the way that I wasn't the same person that I was before my daughter was born. She'd known me for years, and I lacked that zest in life, and I lacked that spirit that I've always had. And I was mad at her at first for almost in a sense of the way confronting me about it, but in hindsight, I know it came from a place of love, and it's probably one of the best pieces of information or advice that anyone could ever tell me. And she also opened up to me and told me that she had been struggling too and was on an antidepressant. So had she not been courageous enough to take the first step in taking care of her own mental health, I may not have had the courage myself. I probably would have been a weenie and would have tried to tough it out and dig my heels in. Here's the thing though, let me get a little honest here. Before I went back on the antidepressant, my daughter was 6 weeks old and I felt no connection to her whatsoever. I didn't want to be a mom, and I'm not proud of saying that. It was not one of my proudest moments. I would wake up in the morning and hear her scream cry or hear her crying, needing to be fed, and I would say, no, put her back in my belly. I'm not ready for this. I had done all this research on pregnancy and what to expect when you're expecting. I read that book. I read it from front cover to back cover. But nothing could have prepared me for being a mother and for parenthood. And so I was denying it, but these were definitely feelings that I was having, and I kind of just tried to brush it off. But it wasn't until I actually went to my 6-week follow-up with my OBGYN and I told her, I need some help apparently because I don't feel connected to my daughter and I'm not happy and I want to run away. So she put me on Lexapro, and you know what? I'm glad because it was exactly what I needed at that time. I had a hormonal imbalance in my brain. I had a hormonal imbalance and a lack of serotonin in my brain. And because I'm genetically predisposed to depression anyway, it was just tenfold for me after pregnancy. And so I went on the antidepressant, and I was actually on it for about 2 years. In fact, and this is also part of the reason why I want to share this too, in fact, I have recently been off of my antidepressants for about 2 or 3 months with professional help. I've been able to wean myself off of them, where I'm completely off of them now. And I really owe that a lot to my exercise regimen in the last few months since the beginning of summer. And that was something that I denied for a really long time, was exercise, which was something that is really important to me and has been important to me for much of my life, but just kind of forgot about those self-care practices. So I want to share this story with you for a lot of different reasons. But first and foremost, I want to share it because mental health should not be a stigma, and taking antidepressants should never be a stigma. If you need the medications, take them. And do everything else that you can in your power as well. Eat healthy, get plenty of sleep, seek counseling, be around those who support and love you, think positive thoughts, go for walks, exercise, feel the sun in your face and feel the cool breeze. Just try to be present, meditate. All of that stuff is important. But sometimes you just need something extra, and that is an antidepressant, and it's okay. And it doesn't mean that you're going to be on them forever, or it might mean that you need them forever, and that's okay too. You know, I've been off of my antidepressant for a few months now, but there might be a time in my life in the future where I might have to take them again. And you know what? These last 2 years have told me that life is too damn short not to enjoy it. I wasn't enjoying those moments with my daughter, those first 6 to 8 weeks of her life. I wasn't enjoying the developmental stages. Could you imagine if I didn't take that medication, how miserable I could have been and how unpresent I could have been for my daughter? My daughter requires her mother to be happy and healthy and fulfilled. And if that means that a small little 10 milligram pill is going to do the trick, why not? So I just want you all to know, moms, not moms, male, female, black, white, I don't care what age you are, I don't care what your background is. We all have our own stuff that we're faced with. And I'm not saying that antidepressants are the answer or the panacea or the silver bullet, but what I am saying is if you were like me in high school and you had a stigma about it, but you kind of understood how important it is to have your mental health, I just urge you to just kind of explore your options. So I'm happy to share more about my story, but that I don't want to keep going. I'd love to hear about your stories too, and if I can be of service to you. Thanks, guys. Namaste.